We're going back to baseball next because we got the baseball trade deadline coming up in about a month, and MLB just released, or ESPN just released their top 50 trade targets. But before we do that, Buckeye State Credit Union. If you haven't heard of them, guys, meet your new favorite financial partner. Buckeye State Credit Union is a local institution offering everything from checking accounts to home equity lines of credit and auto loans with some of the lowest rates in Northeast Ohio. The Cleveland branch is in Shaker Heights, which is one of 5 locations across Ohio, making it super easy to find one near you. If you can't get to a branch, it's no problem. They make banking super simple through their digital banking. And what sets them apart? They make banking professional and convenient. At Buckeye, their focus is you. Their core values, connect, simply, adapt, guide everything they do. They bring people together, cut through the clutter, and are innovative. To learn more, visit buckeyecu.org. Buckeye State Credit Union. Your money simplified.
So Jeff Passan, Cleveland native Jeff Passan, put out his top 50 trade targets at the MLB trade deadline, which, as Ant mentioned a second ago, is just a little bit away. We don't know if the Guardians will be buyers or sellers. They're one game over 500, still in the thick of the wild card race. But as Dustin pointed out eloquently before, 39-38 is a mid record, and this team may be mid. So they can honestly go either way. But Jeff Passan put on each trade target best possible fit. So, and if you want to pull up the 6 players he listed as possible fits for Cleveland, are these names. Maybe you're familiar with some, maybe you're not. Duran from the Red Sox, Marcell Ozuna from Atlanta, Cedric Mullins from the Orioles, Luis Robert Jr., who we've talked about on this show before, from the White Sox, Taylor Ward and Adolis Garcia. 6 names that, if they are dealt, Cleveland would be one of the better fits. Jason, when you see this list, do any of those names in particular stand out to you as a guy the Guardians should be in on if they do decide to become buyers at the deadline?
I mean, Luis Robert is the name that always comes up, I think for good reason. I think he's a guy who's sort of a buy low guy. I don't think the price would be – I mean, at one time he was one of the top prospects in the game, and he had a lousy year last year, and he's even worse this year. But I think a lot of that is just the environment that he's in, the situation he's on. I go back – Nick Castellanos a couple years ago with the Tigers was having a horrible year. Because Detroit was dreadful, and as soon as he got out of Detroit, I think he went to Cincinnati and turned it around almost instantly, started playing better. Some of those guys I like as players, but I don't think they're great fits here. Jarren Duran, outfielder for the Red Sox, not having a great year, but he's another left-handed batter. They've got plenty of those guys right now, and same with Cedric Mullins. Was better in the past. Baltimore's probably going to be a seller at the deadline this year, but another left-handed batter. So, if anything, I think you have to try and find a right-handed batter because all the right-handed batters the Guardians have are the guys that aren't hitting right now. Lane Thomas, David Fry, Jonathan Rodriguez. So if they're going to stick to this platoon type thing, Marcell Ozuna is a guy from Atlanta who's a little bit older, veteran, right-handed bat. But Luis Robert, to me, makes the most sense because I think he fills the need in center field as well. I think you can put him in the lineup every day and leave him there and stop some of the platoon nonsense. And he, again, not having a great year, but a change of environment I think would be a massive boost for him.
Ozuna's the one that stands out for me. I mean, the Braves stink right now.
Yeah.
They're probably going to move on from him. He is older. I think he's 34.
Yeah.
But the guy's played in the field before, but now he's primarily a DH, which is where the Guardians have kind of it's wide open. I mean, they've been Santana and Manzardo have been DHing.
I think they need to move Santana at the deadline. They can buy and sell. I've said that before. I know he's one of their better, but he's
I'd rather
just
have this guy than
up.
Santana right now.
Oh yeah.
Well, he'd be a right-handed bat, but they just need to free up the first base DH logjam right now that they have with Manzardo, with David Fry, Carlos Santana. If they could move off of Santana and sort of free up some more at bats, I don't know that they're going to do that, but I think you can buy and sell. That's sort of the thing now, especially with teams like the Guardians and Rays and teams in those positions.
Ozuna's on a final year of his deal, so if they did make a trade for Ozuna,
it's a rental.
It'd be a half-year rental, which may make the price palatable for the Guardians who have been hesitant to give up prospects before. When you look at that list, I understand why Jeff put all those guys as potential fits for Cleveland. They need bats.
They're all outfielders.
The one guy I kind of like, though, is Taylor Ward from Los Angeles, who we talked about at last year's deadline, Jason. You guys kind of put me on to who Taylor Ward can be. He's got 19 homers this year. I know the average isn't very high, but you'd be replacing a guy with a terrible average and no power for a guy with a terrible average and real power.
Be nice to have someone with 19 home runs.
Right? Like, I'd be lying to say I'm super familiar with Taylor Ward's game, but He's put up 25 home runs last season. He's on pace to surpass that number again this season. He's playing on a Los Angeles team that's mildly competitive at best, Jason, if we're going to give Luis Robert the benefit of the doubt. I know the White Sox are a much worse organization right now than where the Angels are. But if we think Robert getting out of a bad situation, coming into a better situation could help boost his numbers, I have to believe that same could be said for a guy like Taylor Ward. And I don't think his price would be nearly as high as a Luis Robert or a Jarren Duran or someone of that caliber. And he does have one more year of control after this.
And see, that's why I think Ward's price would be higher than. I don't think Robert has much trade value. Listen, I'd be fine with Taylor
Even
Ward.
at this point?
Yeah.
Because he's the best player on that list, you would think,
Who?
right?
Which one?
Well, Duran would be one, then Robert would be two, probably.
I think Robert. I think his value is lower than.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, just because he's having such a bad year, and there's 2 team options on Robert after this year at $20 million. I think $20 million each. I don't know if the Guardians are going to pick those up, but you could pick one up and flip them. You could pick it up and trade them if he bounces back this year, and if he doesn't bounce back, then you decline the option. I'm fairly familiar with Taylor Ward. He'd be a fine fit. I do think the price would probably be a little bit higher on him. I don't think he's making as much as Robert. I could be wrong on that. I don't know his contract off the top of my head. But power source averages are what they are in baseball today. No one really looks at batting averages anymore. It's kind of annoying. But
the Guardians put OPS on the lineup in the
I
scoreboard,
noticed
which
that.
is I appreciate that.
Yeah, I noticed that. I think they just started doing that this year.
It is this year, yeah.
And it is sort of the new way in baseball. It's far more about OPS than it is about batting average.
Are you surprised at how few guys have batting averages over 250 now? And 250
Yeah.
I use as an intentional, because it used not to be very high, and now 250 is like, this guy can play.
The OGs absolutely hate it. I was at spring training last year, and I talked to Eric Davis for the story on switch hitting that I did last year. And wasn't even asking about this, and Eric went right to guys today can't hit. They don't know how to hit. Everybody's just trying to lift the ball. It's all about launch angle. Nobody knows how to hit anymore. Joey Gallo could have had a nice career for himself, but he listened to the wrong people, and all he wanted to do was hit home runs. And now look at him. I've heard Will Clark go on and on. Again, Will was a phenomenal hitter in the 80s. And talking about the way that they teach hitting now, and I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago with Teacher Man, one of the guys out there, Aaron Judge's swing coach, and the way that he teaches snap your wrist and sort of hit the catcher in the helmet on your backswing, like snap down and then spin and pivot through. And it's just all about loft and getting the ball in the air. And Will Clark's point is you can't hit a high fastball. If you're doing this, how are you ever going to get on top of a high fastball? But it's the way that a lot of kids today are being taught and have been taught for the last probably 10 years or so, which means today's younger major leaguers are following this. And that's why you see averages 190, 200, 210, 220, 230. I mean, now if you're hitting 260, that seems high.
Seems very high. Ward, by the way, makes $8 million this year and is arbitration eligible next season before becoming an unrestricted free agent.
I think the price is going to be higher on him than it is on a guy like Robert.
And when you pull up that list one more time, Jason, you know this way better than I do, so I'm going to defer to you here. But when you look at this list, to get any of these guys, I mean, are we talking? I mean, and by the way, this was listed, the order of this, according to Jeff Passan, in terms of how high he rated these guys. Duran was his number 2 overall trade target on the market. The rest of the guys were in that order in one capacity or the next. What do you think it would take to get these guys if they did want to?
Duran is a very good player. He's not having as good of a year this year as he did last year. He's mid in the outfield at best. But again, he's another left-handed hitting outfielder.
No, I'm saying, what do you think the price would be, just so we have an idea of what it would take to acquire one of these 6 guys if the Guardians decide?
I mean, it's going to take a top 10 prospect for any of those guys, probably. I mean, would you deal C.J. Kayfus for Luis Robert?
You tell me. You know the Guardians better than Dustin.
I would. Yeah, I would. Just because Kayfus is the natural first baseman, Manzardo, I think, is going to have that spot locked up for quite a while. And yeah, there's still DH available, but part of the reason the Guardians are in the spot is because they don't ever deal their top prospects. And I mean, maybe maybe Kafis is a bad example. It would probably be someone lower. It would probably be like a double-A guy, a guy in the first baseman at Lake County right now. I forget his name.
Ralphie Velasquez.
Ralphie, yeah. It might be
Look at
someone
that
like
pull.
that. Yeah, that was a great pull by him.
Literally, I thought he was a catcher.
Hell of a pull.
So I think I still think that this is a team because of where the pitching staff is, because of where the bullpen is. I would be willing to go in and buy on this year and sell. Like, again, I would trade Carlos and create an asset where there wasn't one, and then flip and use one or two minor league prospects to go get an outfielder who you can plug in the lineup every day. Who did they give up in the Lane Thomas trade? It was a significant, I can't remember now.
Kenya.
Yeah, he was a pretty significant. He was top 10 guy in the rankings, and Lane Thomas was not one of the top names on the trade market, and that's still what it cost them. So it would probably cost them something like that again.
For a guy lower on the list than Robert, let's say what's up with Adolis Garcia, by the way? Because wasn't he the World Series MVP 2 years ago?
Garcia has not been good the last couple of years. He had a pretty poor year last year. He hasn't been great this year. I think he's more at the end of his career than he is at the beginning. Certainly, he's more at the tail end. I don't love him.
He was the guy with the giant head that won World Series MVP, right? That is him.
I don't love him as a player anymore. He would not cost, because I don't know what his contract is. I don't know what he's got left on his deal. He's got to be close to free agency. He's got to be really close. But he would cost you less probably than certainly than a Duran type or one of those guys.
He also, on this list, had Emmanuel Clase listed as the 12th best trade target available, and mentioned the obvious teams, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Tigers as potential fits. Clase would get a bigger haul back than it would take to get any of those guys, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, I think they've been open to trade him for a couple of years. I just don't think that. I think they've the Guardians are famous for setting a very high price on their guys. Like they set a price point, and then they wait for you to meet it. And if teams don't want to meet it, then they very rarely do they budge off their ask or come down very far off their ask.
I hate to sound like bull, because that's always a dangerous thing. It's a very dangerous situation to be in. But if you're not going to play the prospects, you're not going to trade the prospects, why do you even have a farm system? Right? Like, if you're barely going to call these guys up, and we're going to have Kafis and DeLauder still in AAA, destroying AAA pitching, and you're scared to part ways with those guys to get better, proven major league hitters, like, what's the point?
Well, I think the problem is the Rays are really good at identifying who their guys are that they're going to build around and then trading the rest. Kyle Manzardo was a trade guy. That was not a guy they were going to build around. That was a guy that they marked as expendable. And the Guardians, particularly with all these middle infielders that they've had, they have not been able to identify who are the guys that we want to build around and who are the guys who are expendable, in part because none of them really emerged. How many times have they gone back and forth between Rocchio and Arias trying to figure it out? Freeman they finally gave up on and moved on to bring in Nolan Jones, a guy they had previously given up on. But they just haven't been able to establish these are our core guys, and now these are the guys that we can move, and as a result, a lot of their prospects have lost value.
It's crazy.
So, and now you got like Angel Martinez, middle infielder, now playing outfield, sort of bouncing around.
Does he have value?
No, not. I mean, some, but he's not going to. I don't think you're going to trade Angel Martinez and get one of those guys on that list. I don't think it would take that plus something else.
It's crazy.
So.